Hi, and welcome to my channel, Laura's Library Card. Today, I'm here with my friend Curtis Lane, and we are going to be discussing One by One by Ruth Ware. Curtis, want to give yourself a little intro and say where anyone can find you?
Yeah, sure. I have like the three profiles I barely post to. Yeah, I'm Curtis. You can find me at the Snack Net. We have a TikTok and all that good stuff. We do food reviews, but yeah, I'm hanging out with Laura, and we're gonna look over a great book. Yeah,
And I will leave links to all the Snack Network stuff down in the description. So go check them out. They do cool drink and food reviews and taste new taste new treats all the time. So,
uh,
as we said, we are discussing One by One by Ruth Ware. This is a mystery thriller suspense book. Is that in your wheelhouse? What kind of genres do you prefer?
I've actually read a couple books by Ruth Ware before. I do enjoy her writing style, and yeah, I definitely enjoy the mystery thrillers. I always love the twists and the turns and seeing who done it.
Mm-hmm. So, is that like a common genre for you?
Well, yeah, it's definitely a common genre. I like those ones. I'm into fantasy. Love Game of Thrones. I love not being in the real world, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I would say that I would like to think of myself as reading widely, but I definitely have a romance majority kind of slant with all the subgenres that come with that. But I like to sprinkle in narrative nonfiction and fantasy, YA, a few thrillers. So
Absolutely.
this is not a brand new to me genre, but also I don't feel that I'm particularly versed. So
Yeah, I would
uh,
say the same about me. Like I love a mystery thriller, and don't get me wrong, like it's pretty common,
mhm,
but it's not the first thing I go for. A lot of the times I go for something that's gonna be sound a little silly, but some I go for like sort of fan fictions more
mhm,
or less.
mhm.
One series I read was Hope Never Dies, or
Okay.
and then there's a secondary of Hope Rides Again. So it's a I can't even say it's a fan fiction because it's about the relationship and like the backstory of Barack Obama and Joe Biden as like secret agents. And
Okay.
I don't know, it's so silly and it's fun, but it's so well written in terms of like you think Joe Biden wrote this and you're like, what is
It
going
sounds
on?
adventurous.
Exactly. Yeah, it's very fun.
Okay. Okay. Well, that maybe doesn't have anything really to do with our book today. I would say the blurb actually on Goodreads for One by One is pretty good. It says, there's an avalanche, people are stuck inside. Are they going to survive? Especially since there's a killer inside with them and it's picking them off one by one. I would go a little bit further and say that the summary does have those elements. And I saw someone call it sort of a modern "And Then There Were None" by Agatha Christie, and I got some of those vibes. But yeah, I think there's an avalanche and there's a community, or I'm sorry, a career retreat, and suddenly people start disappearing. And how much of it is being murdered and how much of it is natural disaster avalanche? We
Who
find out throughout the
knows?
course of the book.
Yeah, from the beginning of the book, my first instant and just like the first chapter in it, I immediately was kind of thrown off because of I don't think there's any spoilers in this. This is literally the prologue and maybe the first half of the chapter.
Mhm.
But it's Snoop, but it's the explanation of everyone. I'm like, oh no, am I supposed to remember all of this?
Yeah.
Because immediately I'm lost. I'm like, wait, go back. Who was what? Because
Mhm.
I listened to the book in my car.
Mhm.
So I'm driving, freaking out, like, oh no, like slight anxiety trying to remember these Snoop members.
Yeah.
But I do love the name that Ruth Ware came up with of Snoop.
Mhm.
And I think it would be actually a cool iteration of a Spotify or what MySpace kind of became.
Okay.
So I kind of thought of it in like, I was trying to relate it more to my life if
Mhm.
I was the external person watching this happen.
Mhm.
But no, that was my first initial thought, like, oh no, I have to remember all these names. But then it gets way easier after that. And it
Mhm.
actually the introduction of Snoop member, Snoop scribers,
Mhm.
and like online or offline actually plays a huge part in the rest of the novel. And I wasn't expecting it to be such an important aspect of it.
Mhm. I'm going to go ahead and play devil's advocate here. I thought that element was really stupid. I understand the premise that the whole point is that like there are 12 characters all in this chalet, and 10 of them are either current or previous employees who are, or bigwigs, CEO level people of Snoop. And so it's like their corporate retreat. So obviously it's going to be mentioned. But I didn't really care about this like app. And for there's an avalanche which happens at 30%, and then for the rest of the book they are offline because there's no Wi-Fi or electricity. So like at the top of every chapter it just says offline. It doesn't say what they're listening to. It doesn't say they're not gaining new subscribers, like because they can't connect to the internet. So it was like, why
it's like the Odyssey. They start everyone, and the fingers of the dawn have risen, and or whatever the quote is. I can't remember. This was literally 11 years ago when I was in high school. But no, I understand. I get that. They build up to one point, and that was her whole point, was the build up to, was it probably like 60, maybe 50-60% where the one pops up. That's the largest premise of the entire thing.
Yeah.
So I get where you're coming from. I thought it was interesting, but I know that it only had one point for one chapter.
I didn't hate that element, but I felt that it was heavily introduced at the start, and like they hammered home, they used it to kind of help explain who our characters were, which kind of makes sense. But then there was like meetings about shares and stocks and like the tech behind stuff, and I was like, can we get to like the murder part, please?
Absolutely. But you gotta have some sort of build up. I get that. The first like 25% is just entirely build up, but truthfully I think that's kind of just Ruth Ware's style. I think I'm gonna feel really stupid if I quote a book and it's not the correct author, but it's in the Dark Wood. I believe that's Ruth Ware as well.
I think she has something that's something wood.
Okay,
I'll
cool.
I'll put a picture right here.
Yeah, perfect. But yeah, that was the one that I read prior to. I actually read that I read that on a trip, and it has that same style. She kind of builds up for the first 25-30% of the book, and you're just like, all right, I get it. There's a people here. Now what?
Right. It's not unusual for that to be part of this genre's structure, especially for like this sort of a locked in, closed door. I think it's called the locked door mystery, where you have everyone together and they can't leave, and like people are dying. And so I think that like it's kind of common, you have to get all of the characters together, and then you have to give them, everyone kind of takes their turn to be like, is it you? Is it her? Is it them? And so like you have to have an opportunity to introduce your characters, lay a little groundwork, and set them up. And I think that she does that well, because we find out these two are sleeping together. These two are sleeping together. Oh, it turns out this one has something on this guy, who has something on that guy. So it does set up like the motives, where later when someone is found dead, they're like, well,
they're like, you might have done it.
Yeah, like
or maybe
who,
this other person
who had opportunity, but also what are the tensions that are here that could have led to that as a motive. So
absolutely.
I read most of this in one sitting. I read like 75 or 80% of this.
That's impressive.
Like one sitting. And I did feel kind of frustrated, basically right at that 30%, because I was like, all right, like you just said, there's people here, let's go. And it was like, let's go skiing. And I don't know anything about skiing. So I was like, come on.
Yeah.
And then finally the avalanche happened. And I was like, okay, the avalanche happened. It's time. We're kicking off here. So I do think that it had a slow start.
It's actually weird. I have thought about in the beginning when everything was happening, like obviously they give the intro, obviously, of foreshadowing, like, oh, this is in the news story. This is what happened. And I don't know what it was, but I was so waiting for the avalanche. I'm like, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, I know it. There's foreshadowing. It's not even foreshadowing. They spelled it out in the beginning.
Yeah. From page one that there's going to be dead people and an avalanche.
I was thinking there was going to be more people dead.
Same.
Kind of hoping for that almost. Because I didn't like a couple characters. I'm like, they could die. You
I
could kill
feel,
that one off and I wouldn't feel
yeah,
bad.
yeah, I felt like it was a slow start where they were laying out all this groundwork and introducing all the characters. And there were a lot of characters. There were 12 characters for you to like dive into, you know?
Mhm.
And so therefore she couldn't spend a ton of time trying to give each character a full depth and well-roundedness. You know, I feel like there were some characters in particular who just kind of had two descriptors and they were like, and next, move on.
Done.
And so, and then there was like an
It's like
avalanche,
Carl.
and then like in, you know, so from 0 to 30%, plod, snoop, snoop, snoop. Okay, okay. And then from like 30% to
Francis.
60%, it was like dead person, dead person, dead person, dead person. And I
Yeah,
was like,
it was insane.
okay. So I got to about 70, like I said, 75%. And I'm not going to say, and this isn't a spoiler, but you basically figure out it's officially revealed who done it, or like
Yeah,
the mystery is sort of starting to be revealed at like
yeah.
right at like 80%. So I feel
Mhm.
like the strongest chunk of this book was that 30 to 80%.
I would agree with that.
Mhm.
There was some fun points, at least for me, towards the end of the. So I don't know if this is a spoiler, but I love that part at the very end.
Yes,
Loved
that's
that.
true. That's true.
And I'm just gonna say I loved when they flipped back from
Mhm.
one chapter of one person speaking to another. I'm like, I was like in the car when I was driving. I was just like, are they come? What's going on? Because it was
Yeah,
a solid 15 seconds of silence. I'm
on
just
the
like,
audio.
yeah, exactly. They were
You
like,
started to look over like, is this still
I was
playing?
like, did my book stop? Like, what happened?
Mhm.
But it was, I absolutely loved that. That was one of my favorite parts, and I love that she did that.
Mhm.
But yeah, I don't think that's a spoiler at all.
Okay, so before we start diving into completely free reign, say whatever you want, spoiler territory, we'll put a warning up here. Do you have a kind of overall thoughts before we dive into specific spoiler stuff?
I definitely enjoyed the book. It was a really good read. Definitely kept my interest. Like you said, first 35%. A little dry, but the setup always kind of is.
Mhm.
I would definitely recommend this book for someone as like a airplane read or a book to take to the beach, something just general interest.
Okay.
What about you?
Um, yeah, I would say that this is a sort of starts out slow, but then has a strong middle. I don't love the ending with the last. I mean, I love the like climax, but
Yeah,
then
the
there was
climax is
but
awesome.
then there's like a lot of falling action and
Yeah,
resolution that I was like,
that
why is this continuing? Right. So it, like instead of it having a nice strong climax and then like kind of stopping, or even kind of being like stopping and then being like cliffhanger, like where she could have like added another twist. It was just this like long, slow descent of
yeah.
like more info that it was not to me interesting.
Yeah, I felt it about every single chapter after the climax. I was like, oh, it's
Mhm.
over. And then it kept going. I'm like, wait, what?
Right. Yeah.
That's fair. That's a fair point because I think it was at least 20 to 30 minutes of just extra stuff. I'm like,
Yeah.
this book could have ended
Yeah.
4 chapters ago. Like we were done. I didn't need all this
Mhm.
extra information
Yeah.
and people talking about nothing.
All right. So we are entering spoiler territory. I will put a thing up here saying you've been warned. I will make sure to put a timestamp here in the description also for the spoiler thoughts. So, did you predict the killer?
So I had a thought from the beginning.
Mhm.
So Liz was one of those characters where it's like, okay, I don't know. I don't get it. So this is just because I've read her before. It's always the quiet one.
Mhm.
That's just her style. And I'm like, okay, probably Liz. Don't know how, but it's probably going to be something like her.
Mhm.
But also, I have what thought Topher because I'm like,
Mhm.
it maybe she changed it up and hits the a-hole.
Could be.
Like I really wanted it to be him also because I just didn't like him.
I mean, she definitely set him up to be the jerk and also to give him the most motive. Like he had monetary motive, he had access, he was kind of the jerk. He like he stood the most to benefit monetarily and like in control of the company. And it was his ex who died first, and then his like one of his best friends, but like who's kind of a weirdo, who died second, and then this woman that he was sleeping with who died third.
Yeah.
Am I forgetting anybody? No. And so it was like, yeah. And so I was, so, you know, it really, I think that she was trying to like point all the fingers toward Topher, but like, and I didn't cross him off my list, but like pretty much immediately, I thought it was going to be Liz. Like from very, very
from
early.
The get-go, you're like, something weird about this character. Right. Especially since she was one of the main characters.
Right.
Well, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that like one of the things, like we'll talk maybe about the pacing and structure. We've talked a bit about the pacing already, but like the structure and the writing style, choosing 2 points of view to have Liz and Aaron, I was, you know, partway in.
Disappointed.
I thought we would get like maybe 5 or 6 different points of view.
Yeah.
And as it went further and further, I was like, okay, well, if it's just these 2 people, how's this going to be resolved? Either one of them's going to get killed and then you're down to one voice, or one of them's the killer. So like my brain logically just kind of took that choice and carried it out, and it was easier to, that was another reason.
It was easier to narrow it down.
Yeah.
I also thought it was interesting that just the turn that Liz takes, that threw me off a little bit. I'm like, oh, so she's a psychopath.
Yeah.
Got it. Like it went a complete 180. I'm like, whoa, this isn't the same character anymore.
So you didn't find her like a morally gray character?
No. When you say it like that, maybe a little bit. I definitely think she leans on the side of like more on the evil spectrum in terms of like, I get why she did it. I understand. Okay, it's like you don't have control of your own life. You're taking back control. That's what you're trying to do. But then to keep killing.
Right. Well, and like her first story to Aaron with how she'd been, you know, years previously, she'd been assaulted. And so she kind of reacted in self-defense. Like to me, that story was sympathetic, but also like it didn't really make that much sense. She was like, well, Eva was holding it over me. And I was like, holding what over you? That this terrible accident happened when you were just assaulted? Like what, like, what do you mean? And so then I do feel like that was the only reason really for that like last chunk of the book, because we see on that video at the very, very, very end that she didn't just shove him once as a get away from me self-defense. She shoved him and then was like, oh, you're tipping over this balcony. Let me just push you again.
Bye-bye.
And so to me, like that indication was like, oh, no, you're like, evil. You were assaulted, but you chose
you took it a little far.
Right.
Yeah. I definitely think she, you know, that's why I keep thinking back to that. I completely forgot about the video. To be honest, I zoned out the last portion of that book because of how boring it got to be.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess, definitely a more evil character, definitely on that color spectrum. No, it was interesting how it turned so much. I'm just like, wow, you were kind of messed up.
Yeah.
But I guess it's sort of hinted to it at her. She may have some sort of psychological issue because of how her home life was.
Yeah.
In terms of how she described waking up in her bed and seeing water condensated on her ceiling. It's like, it's got to be freaking cold for that to happen.
Yeah. With regard to characters and Liz and Aaron in particular, because we only have these 2 points of view, we really, in my opinion, don't get very much information about our other characters, because Liz has been sort of estranged from them from a couple of years. Aaron is literally just like playing hostess. She works at this chalet where they all have come. And so we're like removed from them. And it almost meant that I didn't really, it was hard to keep track of them because they just didn't have enough character to them. And they only had those couple descriptors. But B, like I didn't really care about them, or was not invested in like making sure they lived, or felt very much when they died, if they died. So I don't know. I think that I would have liked a little bit more, honestly, from
Oh,
both
absolutely.
Aaron and Liz
Hmm.
to make if their characters had been really great and in depth, that would have maybe made up for that lack. But we just got these little hints about Liz's childhood and her like abusive father. And then like there was this whole thing where Topher was like, oh, actually, Aaron is this like lady von so and so. And then I was like, cool. And then that
That was it.
that was it. And so I just felt like I wanted, like, I mean, I guess Erin had this past where she'd already survived one avalanche and her brother and her boyfriend died or something.
Yeah.
But like, other than her, like, kind of PTSD about that, I don't know. I just wanted a little bit more from both Erin and Liz.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from. Yeah, I agree. There wasn't the best amount of character development,
Mm-hmm.
but I also don't know if it was 100% necessary. I guess maybe she didn't want to build into those two characters too much because then maybe it gives it more away.
But I think that, like, I don't know. I mean, I guess to each his own. A good
Yeah,
psychopath
yeah.
is fun to read about, but also I would have maybe been more sympathetic toward Liz
Hmm.
and maybe more thrown off by her if we had seen instances from her past where she was put like
Used or
downtrodden or
something. Yeah.
abused or whatever, because we just kind of were told from Erin's point of view that like she was like shuddering in the corner, like she was cowering, and I was
Yeah.
like, okay. But then she was also like, she's an owl, she's a predator, and I was like, so which
Yeah,
is
it
it?
changes.
Yeah. And
So
so
yeah, her character definitely, like Liz's character, actually, she 100% changed. Like
yeah.
in the middle of it, it was so abrupt, and
Mm-hmm.
that was kind of weird.
But it's kind of like a Professor Quirrell moment where
Yeah.
he's like stuttering the whole movie, and then he's like, "You were fooled." And so I feel like Liz did that as well. Like as soon as
Yeah.
she kind of realizes that uh Aaron might know,
Hmm.
she just kind of like drops the pretense, and
She's like, I'm done. We're getting to this now.
yeah. So with regards to, we talked about pacing, but with regards to actual plot, like what were your feelings about the plot of the book? And the
It
fact
made
that the
more.
whole thing takes place over less than 72 hours, really.
Oh yeah, it does. You're right.
Mhm.
And I guess in the respect to the overall plot line, I get it, but it didn't really become clear until why Liz really killed them all until the very end. It's like, okay, I really did. It was a little slow for me, I guess. I liked
Okay.
the exciting points in terms of the when Liz smashed into the side of the mountain. That was probably one of my favorite parts. But I am a slightly I love gruesome moments like that. Um, but I don't know. Like you said, we could have gotten more from character development, and it would have given more to the plot. It would have given me a more like connection. If so, like when oh crap, I'm spacing on her name, and Annie, when Annie died.
Yeah.
That was my least favorite character death overall.
Yeah.
But it's just like, but I don't know you. You're just like this little cowering puppy dog because I
Yeah.
don't have any character development.
I will say I really enjoyed the trying to figure it out, where Erin tries to like logic her way through who has motive. We just found Elliot. Like when they find him, they're like, "Oh, is this like a heart attack or something horrible?" But then she's like, "No, I'm gonna look in his cup." And then they were like, "Let's bring everyone together." I was like, "Smart, smart." I'm so sick and tired of like thrillers or horror movies when they're all like, "Let's keep it all secret," so then we're all weakened. And like I
Yeah.
felt like they were really smart to be like, "Let's sleep in pairs. Let's all stay together." Like they made a lot of like logical leaps. I
Mm-hmm.
felt I felt like they were, and then when another body was found, they were more freaked out and the tension was ratcheted up a little bit, but they were still like, okay, let's take this new information and like add it to what we already know. And so that was sort of my favorite element. But
Mm-hmm.
overall, the plot was, I don't know, like Inigo like leaving this note being like, I've made a mistake. I was like, what is happening? Like
Yeah, that one was confusing to me. I'm like, yeah, he's dead.
I thought
I
that
just figured he
she
was
had
dead.
killed him and he like hidden his body and like faked that note.
Yeah.
And
I
then at
thought
the end, he was like, "Oh no, I just like
it just
left."
went away and then I hit my head.
Yeah, I tried to
The,
ski away and I ran
the
into a
dumb
tree. I'm
American, of
like,
course.
what?
Yeah.
So I don't know. For me, the characters were and the plot was really only strong in like the middle chunk. But
Yeah.
you're right. Like we don't fully get a chance to understand who Liz is or why she's doing why she's killing people until she monologues and explains everything. But is that part of the thriller structure? I feel like that's part of like villains and hero structure of storytelling.
It's always the monologue.
Mm-hmm.
Also, my door didn't just open because of a ghost. My cat came in. I don't know how I felt about the like last 35% of the book. Just I get that, you know, Liz needed to have that monologue that lasts almost, what is it, 3 chapters?
Yeah, basically. Because we switch back to Erin's point of view in the middle of it.
All I was thinking was, okay, this is long. This is a very long monologue. And it's all BS. It's all BS.
Well, I mean, I think it does give the reader and Erin sort of an insight into Liz, because Erin's sitting there being like, if I can keep her talking, like maybe help will come in time.
Yeah. Or it's that anticipation and it's building. And it's like, okay, maybe it'll come, maybe it'll come. And then it doesn't come, and then the tea.
Yeah, the tea was good because I really was fooled for like, you know, a couple
paragraphs. For like a hot second. I was like, oh no, she's dead.
Well, I didn't think that she was going to be dead because there was enough of the book left that I was like, she's not dead. I think too, I back out of things too quickly where I'm like, there's no tension here. She's got another 4 books to live, you know, she's fine. But I thought that she had knocked her out or something. I thought
and that would have been pretty bad too.
Yeah, which would have been bad because then Liz probably would have tried to like smother her. But
no, I thought she had that text where it was like, oh, Erin's thinking about or talking about killing herself or something. It's like, that's weak, but okay.
Yeah. Well, when Erin first sent the text that said SOS, and then she says, you know, I figured it out. It's Liz.
It's Liz. Yeah.
As soon as I read that, I was like, Liz can say, that was me. I texted, it's Liz. Like, so yeah.
Like, hi.
I knew that was going to be like turned around and used to Liz's advantage. But no, for some reason I thought when I was like reading the monologue part of here's my reasons why I killed people, I thought we were like almost done. Yeah. I didn't think it all the way through to be like, well, she can't just be like, here's my monologue and I killed Erin. The end. Like, obviously that's not how the book's going to end.
That would have been the worst.
That would have really, really sucked. But, you know, then after that, we have the whole like ski chase in the night.
That gave me some true like adrenaline going. I was excited for that whole situation. And just every time Erin fell, I'm like, get up, get up. You need to move.
Yeah, that was a nice sort of adrenaline.
It got you going.
Fast pace. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm a little excited today.
No, that's I agree with you in that as soon as Erin's like, I'm not really dead, and then she like tries to go, I'm like, go, and you're just like cheering.
You're like 100% on her side.
Right. So I did, and then there's the climax, and you know this is the spoiler section. So Liz dies in the chase. She slams brutally into
it's intense.
A stone wall going at high speed. So she did. So, but then, like we've kind of alluded to multiple times, the last 15% of the book is just sort of like tying up loose ends. I felt like the revelation that Eva had kept all this blackmail content on various people and on Snoop that was really damaging to the company. I was like, what is this really like bringing, other than it brings to light the video about Liz?
Yeah, I feel like they could have just done the video with Liz at like the will and then just been done. I didn't need a wrap up of, oh, Erin gets to see Danny again. It's like,
right.
Like, is it necessary?
We didn't care enough about Erin and Danny to care about their like resolution at the end. Yeah.
Truthfully, I'll take it the twist. I wasn't expecting Danny to be gay. That was a cool, fun twist at the end, but I don't think I needed that information at all.
Someone got a happy resolution at the end of the book. It was Danny, and that was it. So overall, as we kind of are winding down, what final thoughts do you have? Do you have any major problems, favorite moment? What would you rate this?
You already know my favorite moment.
Second favorite moment?
Second favorite moment is when Aaron, it switches back to Aaron in the tea scenario at the end
Mhm.
after she's lied down. Yeah, lied down. I don't know. I don't
After
grammar. I'm
she
in
is
business.
reclined on the couch.
Yes, after she has reclined on the couch. When it switches back to her and she's like, I think Liz is gone. It's like, oh, she's awake.
Yes.
That was a great moment. It's one of those like,
Mhm.
yes,
Mhm.
victory. What about yourself? What was your first and second favorite moment?
I would say my favorite moment, yeah, is the adrenaline packed ski chase through the night.
Love that.
Um, and I would say my second favorite moment is something that was, I think, well foreshadowed, but that I had not picked up on, which was all of the like geo snoop program in beta. And then so Elliot's death happened because he figured out whose location was closest to Eva, and therefore that she was pushed and it wasn't a tragic accident. I was like, oh, that's so clever. Like, leave it to the tech
Yeah.
dude to like try to use modern technology
Hmm.
to try to like figure out what happened. And I thought that was really like kind of a clever
Oh,
moment.
absolutely. It was definitely 100% clever in that. I wasn't. I didn't know the significance of geosync because originally, because it was in the first 35, I'm like, whatever,
Yeah.
get to the thing, and it ends up being a huge part of it. It's like, well, I'm silly
Right.
over here, ignoring stuff that's important.
Well, I don't think I think that was sort of the point, was that they kind of do a bunch of info dump, or there is so much info dump at the start where it's like, here's all the characters, here's Snoop, here's a whole bunch of info about Snoop, about skiing, about the characters, that you're kind of like, all right. And then it's
Uh,
easy to like skim past some of those
yeah.
details that then later are like, oh yeah, remember that moment, remember that moment. So yeah, so out of 5 stars, what would you rate this book?
I'd probably give it a solid 3.5.
Okay.
Yeah, like a C rating. I could recommend it for someone that as like an easy read, or
Mhm.
like I said, something at the beach. I stick with that. It's
Mhm.
not as like I want more is the thing.
Mhm.
I want more character development. I want a little bit of a better plot line, and I wish the wrap up was a little bit better.
Mhm.
So that was why it loses a point and a half for me.
Mhm.
But yeah, what about yourself?
I would go a smidgen lower. I'm relatively critical of my books. I'd say I did enjoy this because I read it in like such a big chunk. I read 80% ish, 75%.
Yeah.
And so even though it was kind of dragging, basically right when I was like, oh my God, do I really have to keep reading this, was the avalanche moment. So I was like,
Hmm.
okay, we're picking up here. So I think I'm going to go with like a 2.5. I feel
Oh,
like
well.
what I mean, that's right, smack in the middle of
Fair
0 to
enough.
5 stars. Um, I did think there were a couple clever moments. I definitely wanted stronger characterization. I wanted a little bit more tension. I think the strongest bit was sort of, as we've said, that 30 to
Yeah.
85%. I think that a tighter ending could have left readers a little bit more satisfied. I think
Yeah.
a little bit more characterization to make Liz morally gray instead of just like she's a psycho.
Yeah. She
Um,
turns and
right.
it's so
Um,
apparent after that.
yeah. And so I've heard when I was kind of skimming through reviews for this, a lot of people seem to be kind of hit and miss with Ruth Ware. So I would
Hmm.
try another one by her, but this one was just kind of a meh read for me. Um,
Yeah,
I I will say I think that the atmosphere was very good. I liked the
absolutely.
skiing and the chalet and the breathtaking views and the
Hmm.
mountains and the snow. There was very strong elements of those that component. And the
Absolutely.
like once the electricity's out and it's cold and like the pipes start to freeze and they're walking around in their ski jackets, like
Hmm.
that was a very strong element as well. I liked that.
Yeah, she's great for like building the scene and like you said, like making you feel like you're almost there. But no, I definitely agree with you in the way that she paints a picture for the reader. But
Mm-hmm.
I guess I can agree. But I don't know. It's a simple read, more or less.
Yeah.
If it was longer in terms of if this book wasn't, I think it's 12 hours total.
Mm-hmm.
If it was closer to 20, I'd probably give it closer to like a 2.
Yeah. Yeah.
If they had to drag that out so much longer, I would have been out.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah,
So yeah, between the two of us, it's a 3 star, 3 out of 5. And I feel that's probably good. I think it'll sit well with some people. And I think that that seemed to be, I think the average on Goodreads was like a 3.7, which
Yeah,
is, I think a
that
lot of
seems a bit
people,
high.
I think that's a hair high, but I
Yeah,
think there's a lot of people who are just not quite so critical as we are.
yeah.
We
I
just
think
had the
we're
last
very critical.
chunk of time to really like talk it through. And,
Yeah,
so anyway, well, thank you so much for coming on my channel and chatting with me, Curtis. I loved your viewpoints, and I like how you really pointed out some things I hadn't thought of. So again, can you plug anywhere that you want anyone to look for you or follow you on Twitter? And
sure. If you ever want to find me specifically, it's at Backlane Films on TikTok, and I think I'm Backlane Films on Twitter or something like that. I don't post a lot. I'm not very funny. I mainly do food reviews, coffee, beer, stuff like that. But yeah, definitely check us out. And
yeah,
me.
again, I'll leave Curtis and the Snack Network stuff all down in the description. And thanks so much for joining me. Bye.